Frigg, called the Mother of Gods, is a very important figure in Norse and Germanic mythology and culture. She's obviously a female energy deity who goes by many names, but among those include the High Queen for her status in the royalty of Asgard, she who is loved, and also simply spouse for her connection obviously to Odin, who is her husband. She's associated herself with life, particularly motherhood, and the day of Friday, which is named for her, Frija's Day. She's classified as a patron goddess, whose worship extended from approximately 3900 BCE to about 400 Common Era, where it was worshipped in strength, although there are still many altars dedicated to this deity. She is associated, of course, with the Aesir, or the Asgardian, who we would associate with the Taurus star, the Taurus constellation, specifically the Asgard star. She again is the wife of Odin, but also the mother of the deity Balder, who was associated with light, and she raised as her own sons, though she didn't bear them, Thor, who is called Donar, the thunder god, and also Loki, who was a Jotunheim that was raised by the Asgardians as a member of their royal family. She was primarily worshipped in what is now southern Germany, and is part of a very long and ancient mythology, which had great influence on mythologies that would come later. She is, of course, the wife of the Allfather and sits at the head of their Pantheon, and that was an important component of her role. And while her principal duties were the protection of life and motherhood overall, she took a particular stance in defense of the Allfather Odin, who would go into his Odin sleep as a way of renewing his cosmic powers. And during that time, he was completely defenseless. And she would stand protectively at his side, sworn to defend the vulnerable king at all costs. She is obviously linked to a great deal of mythology, being the mother of both Thor and Loki, as well as her own son Balder. And it was she who solicited a pledge from all living creatures to never harm him. That pledge was given to her by all things except the mistletoe, which is a gap that Loki would exploit and ultimately cause the end of Balder's life. The important things about Frigg: she was also trained in the ways of a Valkyrie. She is proficient in the use of bladed weapons, long spears, and fighting staffs. But almost more importantly is really her connection in the Pantheon. We see her playing a similar role, perhaps, to Zeus's wife Hera. Zeus also fathered many children outside of his marriage, Thor and Perseus and many others. In the same way that Odin had, he fathered not only Thor, but also Vigor, who would inherit the throne after Ragnarok. And Frigg always took a more mothering role, not an adversarial role to the children that Odin would bear or bring into their marriage. And beyond these associations, Frigg is also linked to witchcraft and descends from a line of very powerful ancient Norse witches. And it is said that she had a very special type of foresight that allowed her to see events that would come in the future. She had seen in some ways Baldur's death and thought that she could cheat fate. And the lesson is that ultimately even the gods couldn't cheat their destiny. It was Baldur's fate to descend into the afterlife, to serve a role there as a greeting for the other Asgardians, or people crossing into the afterlife. He was literally a god of light, and he represented that light as he moved on to the next stage for all people descending into the afterlife themselves. So we learn lessons from some of the deities and the trials that they go through. And I think that's what their reflections were intended to be. Thank you again for stopping in at Nine World Chronicles. As always, we ask that you like and subscribe.